Get in the know. Non-stop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Hey, you held them to 20 points, man. You gave us a chance at the end. But I got 3 words for you. You like that? You like that on 3, 1, 2, 3. You like that?
Hey, happy Kirk Cousins week here on Purple Daily. Your home for daily Vikings entertainment and a place where we just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. We did have one guy tweet us yesterday, Declan, you and I both saw this at least, that he's out. He's no longer going to watch or listen to the show because we're going to devote a whole week. Really, it's only going to be like probably 3 days this week to talking about Kirk Cousins. He's like, what is there left to say about him that you haven't already said? This is the last straw for me. I'm out. So hopefully he's the only one that's bailing because we're talking about the highest profile player on the most popular team in the Twin Cities. The show is presented by our friends at TCL, one of the world's best-selling consumer electronics brands. They have a new lineup of award-winning TVs, delivering the most entertainment with stunning resolution, all at an affordable cost. Learn more at TCL.com. Inspire greatness with TCL. Kirk Cousins week started yesterday with us ranking our top 20 quarterbacks in the National Football League. And we had Kirk 9th. Declan had him 9th. Judd had him 10th. Old Macadac had him 11th. So collectively, this show yesterday said he is a top 10 quarterback in the world. So call us Kirk haters all you want. Mm-hmm. We have him as one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the world. And so today, Kirk Cousins week continues with 3 questions about Kirk. All right. You guys ready for question number 1 here? Or any other final thoughts off the rankings yesterday from the feedback you guys got?
Not from me. I was very comfortable with my rankings.
Yeah.
Okay.
I slept well last night.
Yeah, the only real dissension, right, we had was Jared Goff versus Tua. I mean, all of us were a little indifferent on that one.
Well, Jared Goff versus Kirk was the dissension.
And that was also dissension. Yeah. But I think mostly we were pretty uniform on most of our rankings. I think there wasn't a whole lot of crazy hot takes.
And Tua wasn't a debate like of talent. It was a feeling about the concussions.
Yeah. Can he stay on the field? I guess if we would have said, hey, 16, 17 games of Tua, where do you put him? I'm guessing he probably isn't outside Judd's 20. So, yeah.
Correct.
And then old Macadac did predictably get some Jared Goff pushback yesterday. But
shocked by
I
that.
Stand by my opinion.
Yeah.
My guy, Jared Goff, is one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the league. So here's the first question for you guys here as Kirk Cousins week continues. So last season, fourth quarter Kirk ranked behind only Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, and Jalen Hurts in fourth quarter expected points added and a bunch of other stats you look at. Like fourth quarter Kirk was off the charts great. An NFL record 8 fourth quarter comebacks. The Vikings were the highest scoring fourth quarter offense in the NFL. Overall, Kirk was 14th in passer rating, 23rd in QBR, and 17th in expected points added. And the Vikings collectively were outscored by almost 90 points between the first and third quarters. So first, second, third quarters. Only like 2 or 3 other teams, including the Bears and I think the Texans, were outscored by more points in those first 3 quarters. So overall, Kirk saw a big dip in production in many different key spots, but fourth quarter Kirk was one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So my first question to you guys is, which Kirk do you trust more in 2023? Which Kirk is going to prevail? Is it overall Kirk and he's going to drag fourth quarter Kirk down, or is fourth quarter Kirk going to reach down and lift up overall Kirk?
My personal answer on this would be that they are going to meet somewhere in the middle, because we've talked about the fact that 8 fourth quarter comebacks and 13 wins is not a sustainable statistic. It's not a thing that you're going to repeat. It's almost certainly going to regress at least a little bit, if not more. But what you just ran through, Phil, was also a litany of statistics that say that Kirk Cousins before the fourth quarter, frankly, wasn't that good. And I think in year 2 of Kevin O'Connell, with an offense that I think is going to give them far more potential, because I will continue to say Adam Thielen's lack of separation was a big problem. It was a big problem last year. So I think what's going to happen is I think that fourth quarter Kirk and overall Kirk are going to meet in the middle a little bit. But I also think that Kirk Cousins in year 2 with O'Connell is set up to be, especially with this receiving core and a redone run game that I actually think might suit this team a little bit more, to be a better overall or first 3 quarters quarterback. So if you are looking for me to say, oh yeah, overall Kirk wasn't that good, that's Kirk Cousins. You're not going to get me to do it. I think that Kirk Cousins is going to have another very solid season. And the last thing too that's important to keep in mind, because I've done some reflecting on this as well. Kirk Cousins was in Washington back-to-back years on a franchise tag. So he's been here before as far as what's my future. Like, I think it bothers him, but I don't think it's going to overwhelm him. So I expect another solid season, probably not the fourth quarter heroics that we saw, but I think he definitely improves in the first 3 quarters and has another, it might not be statistically, blow us away, but I think it's going to be very competent and very solid.
Before I guess I would answer the question, I'm just curious to see how Kirk performs, because I think we have gotten a little bit of Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady beer goggles with quarterbacks as they get into their 30s, right? We just basically assume guys in their mid 30s can now play at the elite level. And then we saw right with Russell Wilson last year, was that all coaching, or did he just completely fall off the cliff and he just a useless quarterback essentially? So I'm curious what Kirk Cousins shows up next year. Now, I'd like to give him the benefit of the doubt that he's probably still a good quarterback. He's still between, like we just talked about yesterday, the 13th and 8th best QB in the NFL. And I think some of those numbers might pop up a little bit. But the Kevin O'Connell basically puppeteering Kirk to a degree, I think was more important. I would rather trust and hope that the fourth quarter version is still in there. But that was what was so disappointing about the last play to Hawkinson last year, was because the perception, like I talked about yesterday, I thought the perception of Kirk took a half step forward, and it was great. And if he would have went down swinging to JJ in double coverage or threw a 50-50 ball to whomever instead of the check down to TJ, all right, you went down swinging, but instead you checked down because it was the only viable option. I want that eliminated from Kirk. So I will hope that Kevin O'Connell can still unlock more of that fourth quarter version of Kirk Cousins, and I'll trust that going forward.
Doesn't it feel like of the two, right, that for Kirk performing really well in those high leverage clutch spots, that's the hardest thing to unlock, and he started to unlock it even before Kevin O'Connell, because we saw some big time signs in like 2021. But now that he's over the last couple of years kind of unlocked the late game, he's able to play with a quieter mind, as Kevin O'Connell said, and deliver a drive when it's needed. Not every single time, but much more often than early in his career. And I think that's just sort of a anecdotal thought, but I think if you were to go back and sort of measure the success in those situations, the stats would line up too. So to me, it's like he's kind of figured out that end game more than he ever has in his career. Playing better in the second quarter shouldn't be as hard to fix, I don't think. So that's, I guess I would say, I think maybe we see the best overall. If I had to put money on it, I would say we're probably in line to see the best overall version of Kirk Cousins, provided health and that he hasn't hit the age cliff like Declan said. 35-year-old pocket passing quarterback. You're really reliant on your offensive line to hold up to really unlock that full version, and so we'll see what the guards can do for him this year. But I would probably lean more toward the overall Kirk gets a boost here. 2 areas here worth noting. So this is from Warren Sharp football stats. Big time. He's got a great mustached avatar on Twitter.
He's good.
He's a mustached football man, just putting out stats and trends.
Football.
Yes. So 2 areas that the Vikings really need, led by Kirk Cousins, to improve in offensively. 2 years ago, the Vikings led the NFL in 3 and outs. Last year, so this is kind of a different variation of the stat, number of drives ending in a punt or a turnover. So a punt or a turnover, your drive ends in some form. The Lions had the fewest of any offense. So their drives ended in scores more often than any team, including Buffalo, Kansas City. So the Lions, for instance, had 31 more drives. I'm sorry, the Vikings had 31 more drives, 2 per game basically, ending in a punt or a turnover than the Lions did last year. So I just need this offense to more consistently move the chains, convert, get into field goal range, score touchdowns, etc. early in the game. And then the other one, here's another one. Offensive plays that gained 20 or more yards. So explosive offensive plays. At the top of the food chain, Kansas City, 83. Philadelphia, 80. The Vikings all the way down at 55. It wasn't dead last. The Giants were actually dead last at 43. But think about that. Basically, an average of 2 extra times per game. The Chiefs and the Eagles gave you a 20-yard play. So once per half, the Eagles and the Chiefs offense are giving you the 20-yard play, which completely shifts field position, puts you in scoring range, etc.
And that's on, I think, largely the switch from, ideally, if it works, Thielen to Addison, right? Like that's that switch, because now the question is, can teams afford to always double cover Justin Jefferson? If they can't, then he becomes that guy. And if they do, Addison has to be that guy because he has to get the separation. Like there were a lot of things offensively here that I think just didn't really work out great from a personnel standpoint. And Thielen 3 years ago would have been fantastic. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, when you can't, when you're slowed as much as he appeared to be last season, it takes away some of the dynamic opportunities.
It's kind of amazing. Like these 2 stat categories too that I just threw out. Football is a complicated game in so many ways, but it's also really simple. When you look at, there's a few different stats you can look at and say, boy, if you can just gain yards in large chunks, you're probably a pretty good football team, right? Yeah. So again, here are the teams that had the most explosive plays. It's basically the best teams in the NFL at the end of the season. Chiefs, Eagles, 49ers, Dolphins, Bills, Jaguars, and then Lions, and then Seahawks. So like teams that aren't, but like teams that won 9 games.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, teams that avoided punts and turnovers the most often. Detroit, kind of an outlier. Buffalo, Kansas City, Green Bay, Philadelphia, Cincinnati, San Francisco, Jacksonville, Baltimore. Like if you can gain chunks of yards and avoid punting and turning the ball over, you're going to win a lot of football games. Mm-hmm. So can Kirk be the catalyst for keeping chains moving more often and getting the ball down the field? Justin Jefferson gets 20-yard plays. Who else on this team? Can Hawkinson, can Jordan Addison get 20-yard plays?
Right.
All right, question number 2 here. Kirk Cousins weekday 2.
You like that? You like that?
After the Netflix quarterback series is complete, comes out on July 12th, do you think Kirk Cousins' likability with the public will go up or down?
Oh, I think it's most definitely going up, and I think he's going to be the star of this show because he's so quirky, and like I don't think he's going to surprise people. He's going to be what they expect. But the more that we see of quirky Kirk, the more it becomes fun. He is a meme. He's a walking meme. Like, do you know how many memes are going to come from the show of Kirk? It's going to be incredible. So I think that his likability, relatability in some cases is going to go up because he doesn't really carry himself like most QBs do, and he doesn't really try to. I'll give him complete credit for this. He does not care if he's cool or not, and I think that's a likable factor. So I think when this is done, I think Kirk Cousins is going to be more popular from hey, Cousins, you see that? Quirky Kirk is going to really take off.
So, yeah, I think the likability does, but I think the punching bag that kind of is Kirk for the quirkiness, I think there's going to be more ammunition in that chamber, basically. Like, he's going to do something dorky and something weird and something goofy, and NFL Live will still be making fun of him for it. McAfee is still going to make fun of him for it. Lebitard, Barstool, there'll be plenty of things like, okay, yeah, it was cool to see Kirk break down that play, but did you see that weird meat he was grilling? Like, there's going to be moments like that where I think
T-shirts tucked into his elastic bottom sweatpants.
It doesn't bug him, though. That's what's beautiful about
it. It doesn't bug him, but I think we're going to have more of those things. I'm jacked for this. I think I'm a Judd. I think he probably will end up being more of the star and the one that people talk about a little bit more, even with Patrick Mahomes, who's also featured in this documentary. I think it'll be cool to see him kind of get a little bit more of a national spotlight. And just like with Full Swing, with the golf stuff, people all of a sudden fell in love with golfers, some that they had never really heard of, really paid attention to. And I think we're probably going to have a similar thing with Kirk on this one.
Yeah, the golfer one too. The vulnerability that you saw from some of those guys and guys that you never thought you'd see it from, like Brooks Koepka was a broken man. Judd, did you ever wind up watching that golf documentary on Netflix?
I did not.
It's so good, and they're doing it again, and they're filming right now. But like Brooks Koepka, who's one of the most stoic, tough-minded, he's an athlete. He really would rather be playing football or something. And he talks about how he gets bored on the golf course because it's, not stimulating enough for him. But he's one of the great major players of all time. And these cameras are capturing him basically in tears, talking about how he doesn't know if he can get back to the level of play that he played at. He might be just kind of cooked. And Liv is offering him like 9 figures. He's like, I have to take it because I don't know if I'll ever have a chance to make money like this ever again. And so like they're documenting the lowest moment of his professional life. Wow. And his wife is consoling him and all this stuff. And then there's, on the other side, there's Joel Damon, or Damon, whatever, however you pronounce it. Just kind of a fringe top 100 player in the world. And, he's not like competing to win majors really, but he was this quirky, goofy, self-deprecating character that became kind of a household name. And you just kind of wonder, are you going to see a vulnerable side of Kirk that maybe, because he's so corporate and he's so shielded, he doesn't show you like the most really, there's been 2 moments in his career really where you've seen him with the guard stripped down on that chartered plane with the chains, having fun with his teammates, right? Like that was just full Kirk. And then the "you like that" moment where he's throwing it back to the Washington front office and the media and stuff. Like, are we going to get to see a more vulnerable side and a more like a less polished side of a guy that we aren't used to seeing that from?
He definitely indicated they let the cameras in places that they don't ordinarily. Like he did say that they drew the line at certain things and situations, but but the thing with Kirk is Kirk's incredibly corporate, and like at the podium he can be, but Kirk also accidentally lets his guard down. He won't necessarily repeat that. It's like his thing with the chains where he's like, we've exhausted that. It's like, no, you haven't. It's hilariously funny. It's great. Yeah. But he did it once. So I think what we're going to get again is memes of Kirk doing things that he won't necessarily ever agree to repeat, but they'll be great. I will say this. I think the hidden star here might be Kevin O'Connell. Because there's going to be a lot of O'Connell, and he is an eminently likable guy. He's incredibly intelligent. I don't think
friend of the show.
Mm-hmm.
He is most definitely, and I don't think a lot of football fans know much about him. But like, he's really a fairly, I think, dynamic personality. So I think that there's a chance if he's included, which I'm guessing he is a lot with Kirk. I think there's a chance that we get to see a really, really interesting peek inside the relationship that a guy who knows how to play the position but wasn't necessarily successful relates to a guy that is good at the position but also has his quirks.
Yeah, I actually hope we see some of like the other cast members of the Vikings, right? Like Kevin O'Connell and Justin Jefferson and stuff. I feel like I personally have come around on Kirk's personality a lot more in the last 12 to 18 months because of who he is in the Kevin O'Connell structure versus who he was under Mike Zimmer.
Correct.
It always felt like under Mike Zimmer, he was fighting to prove that he like belonged in the place that he was. Because Mike Zimmer from the very get-go wasn't really on board with the contract, and it never felt like they were co-owners of the house or co-tenants or whatever.
Right.
It felt like Kirk Cousins is leasing from Mike Zimmer, and Mike Zimmer always has an issue as a landlord with Kirk being too Kirky. Mm-hmm. With Kevin O'Connell, it truly feels like a partnership. O'Connell has made Kirk cool in some ways that Mike Zimmer didn't. He's embraced Kirk's quirkiness. I don't think any of this necessarily excuses what happened in 2018-19, which is you signed him to win a Super Bowl and you missed the playoffs in the first year after going to the NFC Championship game, and then you get smoked in the second round against San Francisco, and you kind of tailspin the next year from there, right? Like, that still bothers me covering this team, and like that was a huge missed opportunity, and he was a figurehead for it. But now that we're like further removed and he's still here and playing at a pretty high level, and I think his personality has evolved to some extent. I'm excited to sort of see more of that behind the scenes when this Netflix series comes out.
Absolutely.
Before we get to the third question here, let's shout out our friends over at Livia for helping all kinds of Purple Daily listeners lose weight over the past couple of years.
And they've done a fantastic job. Started with me a couple of years ago when I went from the guy on the left to the guy on the right. Yeah, that's right. That is the same guy. That is your favorite sports dad, down 40 pounds. And here's the most important thing. They're not only going to help you drop the weight, they're going to help you keep that weight off. And right now, do I have a summertime offer for you? 8 weeks free. Your first 8 weeks free. Just put that into context. Imagine being into July, 8 weeks free, and you're now down, let's say 15, 16 pounds. You're looking good, feeling good. You can drop as much weight as you want, and Livia is then going to help you keep that weight off. 855-GO-LIVEA, Livia, LIVEA.com. Do what so many people in the Purple Daily family have done. Give it a try. I guarantee you'll be happy. Livia.com.
And then once you get your weight on track, maybe you should get your, like your facial hair and your other hair in check. Okay, look good, feel good, play good.
Damn right. I mean, I had a wedding a few weeks ago. I had to make sure I looked good. My friends at Manscaped helped me out. And boys, we're 2 weeks away from the 4th of July. And you call yourself an American without a lawnmower? And I'm talking about the Lawnmower 4.0 from our friends at Manscaped, okay? Whether it's the beard trimmer up here or the lawnmower down there, okay? Manscaped has some of the best products imaginable, and it's 20% off plus free shipping when you use promo code PURPLE. So whatever product you want to buy, the lawnmower, the beard trimmer, any of the products, too, that they also have at Manscaped, you will get 20% off with promo code PURPLE and free shipping when you check out. There's a little promo section there. When you get to that checkout section, promo code PURPLE for 20% off and free shipping from our friends at Manscaped and Manscaped.com.
And also a shout out to our friends at Federated Mutual Insurance Company. Like having a great offensive line for your business. Federated has been around for over 100 years providing protection, risk management, tools, and resources for you to elevate your business and protect against potential threats and risks. They have all sorts of great people waiting to consult with you, and you can find a full list of industries Federated specializes in working with over at federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. Okay?
You like that? You like that?
Kirk Cousins week continues here with question number 3. How many more years of high-level play, relatively high-level play, do you think Kirk Cousins has in him? He's entering his age 35 season this year.
Yeah, I've given this one a lot of thought because I do think that I don't think it's by any means ridiculous to expect a really good season at the age of 35. 36, okay. It's as you push towards 40, I get concerned. I'm going to say that he has, if your phrasing is relatively high, so he is still very competent. I'm going to say he has 3 years left of like very competent play.
Okay, so 35, 36, 37.
Which might be pushing it. But my feeling with Kirk is this. I feel that, and part of this is the presence of Kevin O'Connell, who is a definite ally to Kirk, and part of this is probably Kirk's age. I feel like the most important thing for a quarterback like Kirk is to be as mentally stable as he can possibly be, because he's not going to run a lot. Like his skill set of, oh my God, he used to run for, X amount of yards per game and now he can't. That's not in the arsenal, right? So as far as like being able to look at defenses, to break things down, I'm going to say I think he has 3 years left. But I certainly am not going to then just lump him into the Brady, oh man, he can go till 42. That, in my opinion, is few and far between. So I'm going to give it 3 more years. Not so sure they're all going to be played here, but I think he's a guy that could definitely start for at least 3 more years.
If it's just high-level play, I think he maybe has 1 year left. I think he has 1 or 2 years left of high-level play. And again, how do we want to view the statistics here? Because if you're suggesting we're looking at statistics, QBR has went down 3 points from 2020 to 2021. It's went down another 3 points from 21 to 22. So his statistics have dropped to a degree. But again, that clutchness rose up for the first time, or the first time in a long time last season. I I don't believe we can just assume that every quarterback, once they get in their mid-30s, even in a pass-happy league with great coaches and infrastructure, everyone just can be Tom Brady like a cyborg into their 40s. And I think there's maybe one higher-level season of Kirk play left, and then I think you're going to start seeing drop-offs in 24, 25, 26. We'll see how long he remains in the league. But I think there really is only one more good year of really high-level play from Kirk. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I was trying to look at some of the recent similar pocket passer guys that they stand back. They're mostly statues, especially in their mid-30s. And what happened with those guys? I do think you have to take Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers completely off the table because those are like two of the Mount Rushmore great quarterbacks of all time. And Dex, you mentioned Drew Brees earlier. So Drew Brees he's probably another one that he's such a cyborg. And for his whole career, once he got to New Orleans, was like setting records and stuff and making playoff runs. So Drew Brees was really good until the age of 41 still, but his body started breaking down at 39. But from 35 to 39, he was just playing every game and putting up 4,500, 5,000 yards, whatever. But you almost have to put Drew Brees in a different category. See, the other three guys that are maybe more realistic, Phillip Rivers was a Pro Bowler until he was 37 years old, basically a perennial Pro Bowler. And then he was a 4,000-yard passer with decent peripheral stats, too, at age 38 and 39. Even that last year in Indianapolis where he still looked like he was throwing a sidearm frisbee half the time. But, he put up some pretty respectable numbers, and they won a few games. Matt Ryan, age 35, was really his last truly productive season, and then he played a couple more years, but it just did not look the same. And I'll throw Ben Roethlisberger in here too. Age 36 was his last really productive season, and then he played for 3 more years as kind of a zombie who was just taking a snap and
took a beating.
Yeah,
self-inflicted too.
Yeah. So if you look at Ryan, Rivers, and Roethlisberger, you can definitely keep playing until you're 38, 39, 40, but 35, 36, 37 are your last, that's like your last runway, depending on health and probably the car that you're driving to.
I also don't hold Kirk Cousins' decline in statistics from 2021 to 22 against him. Because a lot of his statistics, again, previously were picked up at times in garbage time. Like, where did those stats come from? And I don't think his decline in stats in 2022 showed a decline in play.
Yeah,
I think it showed a difference in it's like the picks. The picks went up. Guess why? Because they said you need to take more chances, and he did, and so he threw more picks. But I don't think, for the most part, we said, "Oh my God, he's now an interception machine." So I'm very careful not to pick on Kirk for his decline in stats because he gave us far more of what we were asking for than he did back in the days when they'd be down again by 14 points in the fourth quarter for a couple of years, and then Kirk would go nuts and ball out, and we'd be like, "Oh, typical Kirk." So
yeah,
Kirk's an interesting case, but yeah, I could see him with about 3 more years, health provided, which has always been for him good, fortunately, and offensive line holds up.
Let's say here's another tentacle to this. If he does, do we all agree? So we're kind of saying like a high level, we're all kind of in the 1 to 3 years maybe range, but bouncing around and at least existing as a starting quarterback, like a Roethlisberger or maybe Phillip Rivers at the end, you can still throw for like 4,000 yards, even if you're not that good. Let's say he plays another 4 to 5 seasons, and he's throwing for over 4,000 yards a year, and he's putting up 26 to 30 touchdown passes, which with a 17 game schedule is, you don't have to be a top 10 quarterback to put those numbers up anymore. If he does that for 4 or 5 more years, he will climb up into the top 10 in all-time passing yards and the top 10 in all-time passing touchdowns. Think about that.
Longevity.
And then wind up being like a 12-year career as a starter. Maybe there's a Super Bowl run mixed in there somewhere, but it kind of goes back to our Hall of Fame conversation from last weekend that was so controversial. Saw some people like, "Oh, no, you guys think he's a Hall of Famer?" No, and we're just posing questions, kicking topics around. But if he stays durable and plays and puts up 4,500 yards, 4,000 yards. Like at the end of his career, he's going to wind up with some pretty gaudy numbers historically. It's going to be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I have a bonus fourth question, actually.
Oh,
I'm going to spring on you guys.
I wasn't expecting this. I didn't prep this one.
A bonus fourth Kirk question.
You like that on 3, 1, 2, 3.
It is Kirk Cousins week, so we might as well.
I'm done. With the show.
So he is set to be a free agent now after the 2023 season.
Yep.
And there's really no incentive at this point, unless the Vikings offer him something really nice on an extension, but maybe they come back to the table or something and say, hey, after thinking it over, we didn't draft a quarterback. We wanted to leave our options open, but the draft is gone, and we're not going to be able to pick Caleb Williams or Drake May. So, Kirk, we love you, man. We saw that Netflix documentary. Boy, you're really a fan favorite, and we want to extend you. I don't know that Kirk has any incentive, like Florio said in that clip that Declan played yesterday, to sign anything until he tests the market next March, right? Like
Right.
You're sitting here now. You're less than 9 months away from just being able to gauge your value on the open market. So let's fast forward to next March, and Kirk becomes a free agent. Who do you think? I'm putting you guys on the spot here because it's a bonus fourth question that I just thought of. Who are the 3 most likely teams to be after him in free agency? Vikings included, if you think they'd be among the 3.
Oh, that's a loaded question.
Do you think this is part of the reason why the 49ers maybe haven't been interested in a trade?
I could see San Fran. Definitely.
Another one that immediately comes to mind, especially if he just bombs, the Packers.
If Jordan Love bombs?
If Jordan Love bombs,
wow.
The Packers. He stays still in the Midwest. He's familiar with the area.
A little closer to Michigan.
You know what, though?
I could see it.
I don't think he would want to play 8 to 9 games outdoors a season.
Well, the first few are warm weather, September, October. It really only sucks in like January.
I know, but if you're successful, we've seen, look, at that age, if you are successful, it often does not end well because if you get a home game, it's miserable. But I could definitely see, I mean, San Fran still makes perfect sense. It makes absolutely perfect sense.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't appear that Trey Lance is going to be the guy. Brock Purdy's a great story, but 1, he's coming off a very significant injury, and 2, he was a 7th round draft pick. Like, we don't know. Like I feel like there's this assumption, well, the 49ers proved Brock Purdy could work. We don't know that for sure. So I do think that you're onto something. I won't dismiss Kirk Cousins to San Francisco until Kirk Cousins is retired.
I agree. And if you're San Francisco, it did make all the sense in the world between February and now to pull a trade of some kind. But it's like it's almost like they've taken the long view and said, okay, let's make one more run at it, and maybe one of these 3 guys in the room between Brock Purdy and Trey Lance and it sounds crazy, but Sam Darnold. But that would be the organization that could revive a guy that was formerly a top 10 pick, right? Let's make one more run with a hodgepodge quarterback room. And then at the end of the day, if it doesn't work out again, our guy that we've been thinking about for 5 years will be available to sign in free agency.
Yep. Kyle Shanahan will finally get his man. You know, the division he also could jump to where there could be openings, the NFC South.
Well, Carolina won't have an opening, but Tampa will.
Tampa will.
They might be bad enough to just get one of the best quarterbacks too.
Atlanta's a real wild card because I think Tampa gets a top 2 pick. I think they are purposely gonna be just terrible.
The Saints?
But
the Saints quarterback situation right now?
Derek Carr is.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But I think Atlanta, definite possibility.
Okay, what about Vegas? Let's start there.
Thought about that too.
Because Jimmy Garoppolo, health, everything.
Yeah.
Who's the coach though? I guess that's my question. Who's the coach then? I mean, do I see Kirk going to play for Josh McDaniels? No.
Okay.
I don't. If he's gone, maybe.
I already suggested one of them, but what about Detroit? What about the Lions? What about if he goes home and they move on from Jared Goff?
Oh boy, I'm gonna back away here, Mackey's.
No, well, Goff, isn't his contract coming up?
I think.
Yeah, but they're gonna sign him to like a 10-year extension. I hear his agent is doing great work behind the scenes. By tapping into Phil Mackey.
It's the same as Kirk. Much like with Kirk, old Macadac has the ability to think 2 things: that this guy can be a fringe top 10 quarterback, and no, you should not pay him $40 to $50 million a year.
Well, he grew up there.
Yeah.
A Lions fan in Michigan.
So Jared Goff's
I can see it.
contract has one more. He is under contract through 2024, but the dead cap is only $5 million.
Yeah.
So you could move if Goff has a weird year. You could move on from him. Bring Kirk home. What about this one? The New England Patriots. Bill Belichick, sick of working with young quarterbacks, immature, Mac Jones, whatever. Let's get another professional, surgical pocket passer in here.
I don't know that's a personality fit at all. That's a good question. I don't know.
Maybe Bill's changed a little bit.
I do think that if Kirk is going to leave here, I do think he would either go closer to home, i.e. Michigan, or go towards the south. His dad's got the church in the Tampa area, right?
Is it Tampa? Okay, so Tampa and
in
Detroit.
Florida. So like the Florida, but I mean, you could also go play for the Falcons. I mean, you're right by Florida, basically.
Yeah.
So I could see those. I don't think he'll go to the AFC because I don't think the opportunity to win there is good because it's so loaded with great quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, how many openings are there even going to be? I mean, the Colts have Anthony Richardson. They're going to unleash, right? Who'd the Texans take? Stroud, right?
Yes. I mean, there's just a litany though of good young quarterbacks, and I don't know that if you're Kirk at his age that you want to run head on into that group, especially since this conference is not loaded.
Super interesting. So, all right.
Good fourth question.
Thank you. Yeah.
Great job of just out of nowhere sprung it on me. Nope, I hadn't prepped it right off the top of the old noggin.
Oh, I'm gonna catch you off guard again here. Talk about Finch Home Solutions. Go.
Oh boy, what should I do? Oh, hold on a second here. I'm calling up their website, finchhomesolutions.com. Look at the truck right there. You see on the side, finchhomesolutions.com.
That's the horn, actually.
That is the horn. That is the horn. In fact, Cody Finch, if that's not the horn.
Buddy, it's not going to get any greener, guy.
It should be. And then you're like, is that the Vikings horn? And you're like, absolutely, because
thanks for the turn signal, buddy. Yeah.
Finch loves two things. Finch loves the purple, and Finch loves making sure that any electrical issues in your home or outside your home are taken care of. They are fast, they're efficient, they're courteous. It is the hat trick of what you want when you make that phone call to 612-357-2604, inside or outside, flickering lights. You're like, why are these lights flickering? You know what? That's a problem.
What the flick?
What the flick? You got to get hold of Finch. Outside problems. Let's say there's storms that have blown out some lights outside. Finch is going to fix that too. FinchHomeSolutions.com. Check out their site. Easy to navigate. Easy as can be because Finch Home Solutions is going to take care of any electrical issues in your home.
Yes. Happy Kirk Cousins week to all who celebrate.
You like that? You like that?
We got Write That Down predictions and an accountability session tomorrow here. Purple Daily Vikings Entertainment. See you guys.